Hi guys, welcome to D6 Evolution. I'm Wes, and this is most definitely Andy. And today we're going to talk to you about the movement phase. So, Andy, give me a brief overview about the movement phase.
So, what I'd say about the movement phase is it's literally the only phase which is completely under your control. Pretty much the only random thing is rolling sort of charge rate, advance ranges, isn't it? So make sure you do the random bit first. And apart from that, I'd say plan out your movement phase before you even start moving anything. Do you think, Wes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, but yeah, before you even do, you've got to think about so many aspects in the movement phase. There's so many points, and we're going to break that down quite a bit over the next couple of minutes.
You are literally setting up the rest of your turn, aren't you?
Yeah, so thinking the movement phase sets you up for the shooting phase, parts of the psychic phase, and the assault phase, and actually then it's countering what your enemy's going to be doing later on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because all the time you've got to think what he's going to do the next turn. So most important thing for me straight away is re-establishing screens if you need them. So if your opponent's going to bring down some deep strikers, then you've absolutely got to re-establish your screen so that they can't sort of get into your backfield.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah. Next thing to think about is with your psychic phase, make sure that you're not sort of straying your psychers accidentally into sort of denial range.
Yeah, that's one thing to do as well. And actually thinking about positioning your psychers as well for your opponent's next psychic phase, so you have denial capability.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so you can have lots of anti-psychers, you can have your Colexuses, you can have your Black Templars. There's so many different things, and just making sure you're covering enough of the board with them.
Yeah, it's very easy to get focused on the offensive side of the movement phase, but actually thinking subtly defensive as well for your countering what your opponent's going to be doing in the next his next turn.
Yeah, that's one of my problems. I'm always overcommitting to the to the sort of flat out assault.
Story of your life, isn't it?
just jump in and go for it.
It's like these videos, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all planned.
Absolutely.
So when we're talking about sort of pre-measuring, do you want to go over exactly what that is?
Yeah, so pre-measuring comes into many aspects, really.
Yeah, I'd say pre-measure everything.
Absolutely everything needs to be pre-measured. So things to think about pre-measuring is before you even move it, you need to, if you go think about the shooting phase, you need to consider your actual movement of your model plus the range at which they can shoot as well. So you need to factor that in. So if a model's got a 6-inch range in terms of movement and a 24-inch range of shooting, then you need to be within 30 inches to start with, otherwise it's not really worth considering moving that model in the first place.
Yeah, and if you reverse the situation, trying to be out of range of your opponent's model, so if it can move 6 or 8 inches plus its weapon range, and you just got to be an inch away, and you agree it with your opponent beforehand. So when you pre-measure it, even when everyone starts moving their models around, you know whether you're going to be in range or out of range.
I think it's probably a good way in how I naturally go about any movement is I think about the offensive effect I want to get out of it, and then I think about the defensive element I want to get out of it as well. So so thinking about offensive and defensive anytime you're moving that model. Yeah,
always got to bear in mind threat ranges.
Absolutely.
What other things do we sort of usually pre-measure is sort of charge ranges. So if you're going to move a model like Samael here, and he's going to charge these berserkers over here, if he's moved, he will move his, I think he moves 14 inches.
14 inches, yeah.
It's 14 inches plus his 2d6 charge, and then he would need about a 7-inch charge there, wouldn't he?
So what I would tend to do before I even move him is measure the distance from where he started to where he's potentially end up, and then tell my opponent, hey, actually, I need a 7-inch charge in order to get to you before you even move the model, and it just means that you don't gain or lose that phantom inch, which can be quite annoying for both sides of it.
Other things I think with threat ranges is make sure that your models are in range of more than one thing for when it comes around to the shooting phase. Because if Samael's completely killed something, you want to make sure that this Sakaran's in range of something else. So you want to give yourself multiple options, don't you, in the shooting phase?
Absolutely. I think that's something when we're coming on to in the shooting phase a little bit more detail about overmatching your target, and then having secondary or tertiary targets that you can switch onto if you end up...
Yeah, and it comes back to just planning out not just your movement phase, but really your whole turn right from the start, and you've got to have a sort of vision in mind for exactly how your turn's going to go with contingency plans. Other things to think about are at the end of the turn when you're bringing down your deep strikers, exactly where are you going to bring them down? Are you going to bring them down to make sure they're in buff range of of your other key characters which are already on the board.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because you can't place them until the end of the turn, so you really have to move the rest of your army with the mind of where they're actually going to be placed at the end of the turn as well.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads us a little bit onto buffs of characters as well. So I think it's really important that, especially in 8th edition, a lot of the 8th edition power comes from buffing of your units from key characters.
And there is nothing more embarrassing than accidentally becoming out of buff range of being 6.5 inches away from sort of Samael.
Yeah.
And your opponent having to point it out to you.
Or your Dark Shroud.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he likes to clump all his guys together and have super buff units going around. So
I am that guy.
He is that guy.
I am.
It's so satisfying when he's 6.5 inches away. Let me tell you about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably it in terms of like pre-measuring that I've got. To talk about right
absolutely. The other thing to talk about in the movement phase, going back to deep strikers, is how you can clear screens.
Yep.
There's not many ways of killing stuff in the movement phase, but it's important to know there are some ways of it out there. Things like classically plane, sort of your fighter jets, they can drop bombs in the movement phase to clear screens. And there's other mechanics out there like Sisters of Battle have their Acts of Faith, which start at the start of the movement phase, or maybe just before, I think. And again, they can clear screens, so you can drop in your deep strikers.
Yeah, it's always nice when you can do that as well, because it allows you then, if you're doing it within the movement phase, to plan out a little bit more in depth about what other effects you can get out of your army when it then comes onto the shooting phase.
Yeah. The other thing, which is a little bit more advanced, is trying to position your models in a way that it will force your opponent to do something. For example, if this Bloodthirster here is coming towards my Dark Angels here, if I place Samael in front of him to try and shoot him, which may be a slightly crazy move, all that's going to happen is the Bloodthirster is going to come forwards if Samael doesn't kill him, and then kill Samael, and then launch himself into this tactical squad here. And what you've effectively done is slingshot that Bloodthirster, because he gets extra movement in the assault phase, doesn't he? He gets an extra 2d6 inches plus his 6 inches worth of piling in and consolidating, and you've completely stuffed yourself over by positioning him here. But if you position Samael all the way behind over here, I'm still not saying it's a good idea to sacrifice Samael, but you're forcing that player to make the decision either to charge into your lines the next turn, or have to double back sort of 12, 14 inches all the way back there.
Absolutely.
So you've effectively maybe neutralised that Bloodthirster for 2 turns if he wants to go back and kill Samael.
I think 2 things really come out of that. Is forcing your opponent to make decisions.
Yeah.
And potentially by making those decisions, putting him on the back foot and out of place from his game plan as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes giving that sacrificial, juicy-ish unit,
Yeah.
that you can do that by then moving him out of position, so actually using his movement phase against him.
Yeah, absolutely. And classic things to do that with are things like scouts, Nurglings if you play Chaos. Nurglings are my favourite unit.
Nurglings.
They just don't die.
No, they don't.
Or flyers. Like when I play my Dark Angels, my Dark Talent, I'll classically turbo boost it behind enemy lines, usually near something which could go back and kill it. But the whole idea is I then neutered that sort of really strong sort of assault unit for a couple of turns. Because if it goes back 12 inches, then it's going to take another turn to come all the way back to where it started.
Yeah, I kind of use deep striking units in a very similar sort of vein as well,
Yeah.
and not necessarily bring them on the first turn. There's always that temptation to try and maximise your firepower, but sometimes taking them to the second or third turn, when your enemy is already into his movement game plan, and actually springing something in his backfield where you didn't expect it.
Because not everyone re-establishes their screens. Everyone's really clear at the start of the game. They're not going to be Alpha Strike. They're going to have the scouts up on the board. They're going to make sure that they're not going to get killed. But after turn 1, it's all about running forwards and killing people.
Yeah, when the blood mist descends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So people often forget to rescreen, and you can get a much better target turn 2 onwards.
Absolutely.
So if you haven't got a good target turn 1, if someone's screened too well, just leave your units in reserve.
A bit of tactical patience is always worth it.
Yeah, I have none.
No, you don't.
Right, guys, this is probably everything we can think of for the movement phase. Next, we're going to be covering the psychic phase and the shooting phase. So join us for those videos.
I'll see you again soon.
Bye.